Hello everyone, I'm Adriana and this afternoon we are going to see the repair of iPhone XS by Mobile One. We have on our workshop an iPhone XS restarting itself on Apple logo. The motherboard in this Apple device is very compact. It's actually composed of two separate PCBs that are sandwiched together. It is a fairly common fault when the phone constantly reboots. We are going to completely disassemble the device and perform checks on the motherboard. This kind of failure could appear from shocks or overheating on the motherboard. In the first step, we must measure the resistance of the connectors. In this way, we can identify any track in bad condition. On the market, you can find several payment tools that can offer you all these values. We also have the opportunity to measure the motherboard voltages. We have found several troubled tracks. We are not going to waste time with these measurements. It's a rather long video, so we are going directly to look for the cause of the fault. We use a multimeter in diode mode with the red type to the ground and with the black type measuring the pads. We are also going to connect the thermal camera so we can observe how the device behaves. We observe an overheating in the middle of the motherboard, but until we separate the PCBs, we can't reach any conclusion. Knowing that the fault is on the motherboard, we will proceed to separate the upper part from the lower part of the motherboard. For this process, I used KC 303 Pro separator. With the help of a scalpel, we are going to cut the protection. We turn on the separator and wait until it reaches 180 Celsius degrees when the tin becomes liquid. Remember that the tin between the two parts of the motherboard is a low temperature tin, so it melts much earlier than the other circuits. We use a tweezers and remove the upper layer. Once the upper part is removed, we are going to cool the machine. We let the motherboard cool a little bit. In this way, we avoid possible damages. For the moment, I do not recommend the purchase of this separator because in a short time I will present a new tutorial analyzing two different models. We are going to see the pros and cons of each one. We are even going to get a tool with better performance. Personally, I like to have 1, 2, even 3 tools and choose the best one according to the work I have to perform. In our company, we work in this way. If a tool works correctly, it's not changed by another one, and we always try to choose good quality tools. Let's continue with the repair. We inspect the motherboard very carefully because the details are very important, so you have to pay close attention. Look here, you can see an overheating. There are at least two, even three or four burned balls. Right now, we already know that we have a problem on the motherboard. In this area, the communication between the two parts is failing. It seems that one of these lines is the communication between the microprocessor and the baseband, and in the middle we have a coupling capacitor. When you lift any integrated circuits, you can see these gray pads, even burned. Is a fairly common failure on all mobile devices.
Es un fallo bastante común en todos los dispositivos móviles.
Over time, tin loses its properties, changes its chemical composition, and for this reason, we do not have the correct voltage. Sometimes we are talking about lines that moves a lot of voltage. For the moment, we are going to keep the thermal paste and at the end of the repair, we'll reuse it. We clean the two layer with contact cleaner and a piece of cloth. In this way, the flux remains on the cloth and is not distributed throughout of the motherboard. This is a good way to clean ECs and cards. We continue to apply flux on all sides. We can use the Amtech or Quick Chip Flux. They are two good brands. With the help of the soldering iron at 360 Celsius degrees, we make a ball and pass over all the pads. In this way, we will be able to mix the old tin with the new one and improve the cleaning process. This Apple device is almost 3 years old since it launched, and because of this, the old tin has lost some of its properties. To remove the excess tin, we use the soldering mesh and the soldering iron at 360 Celsius degrees. At no time do you have to press the motherboard, and you always have to use a fat tip to distribute well the heat. Here you can see how the surface has been completely clean. We must not forget the importance of the flux, which is the best friend when we perform a microsoldering or cleaning of the motherboard. Always, I like to insist on one point. It's very important. A good repair is done with a good cleaning. You have to have the pads clean without dirt and without tin. In this way, the work is 100% well done. Once the motherboards are clean, we use this tool to confirm the correct operation. On the description of the video, I will leave you the link from where to buy the e-socket. If you want to dedicate yourself to the repair of iPhone X, XS, iPhone 11 and 11 Pro, this is an essential tool. You have to remember that this repair is quite expensive, so investing money from time to time is really necessary. We are going to turn on the device and observe how it's working. It seems that it works, and the fault was on the union of the two parts of the motherboard. Now we disassemble the motherboard and continue with the repair process. Here I'm going to leave you a pretty good trick. Before joining the parts of the motherboard, measure the resistance of all the pads. And in this way, you will know 100% if the device works correctly. For the reballing process, we use a good quality base at 148 Celsius degrees thin. In the description of the video, you will find the link from where to buy it. We use a plastic tool to fill in all the gaps. With the help of the piece of cloth, we clean the stencil well. We go through the microscope to take a closer look. If you observe that any area doesn't feel well, we review with a little tin and that's it. At the end of everything, we have to lift the stencil. Again, we go through the microscope to understand better the whole process. The next step is reballing the motherboard. We are going to apply 180 Celsius degrees for 2 seconds. It's very important to fit in well the motherboard so it doesn't deform. Again, we go to the microscope to understand the whole process closely. We can see how the balls have remained shiny, this being the result of the good microsoldering. We are cooling the motherboard little by little. In the next step, we are applying a thin layer of flux to improve the process of joining the two parts of the motherboard. We place the thermal paste on the layer part. We turn on the machine and wait until it reaches 180 Celsius degrees. After 2 seconds, we proceed to cool the motherboard. A kind of problem that can happen when you are joining the two parts of the motherboard is that when one of the parts of the motherboard is bended and there is no way to join it. In another video, I'm going to show you how to do it in this case. Now we are going to remove the motherboard and connect it to a laboratory source. At the end, we are going to assemble the device so we can be able to pass the functional test. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time. Bye bye.